Good morning, everybody. My name is Harry Jarrett. I'm the pastor here at Pleasant Valley Church of the Brethren, and this is Faith in Process Sundays Cool. It is a live podcast in a Sunday school setting. So, welcome to all the faith processors in the room and all of you that are out there processing your faith and listening to this podcast. Today, we have a friend of mine, a pastor, an author. Her name is Angela Finet. I said that.
Finet.
Finet.
It's Belgian, not French.
Okay, so Angela Finet. I was going back and forth. Is it Finet? Is it Finet? I was pretty sure it was Finet, so I went ahead and launched out. But Angela Finet is with us, and she has just recently written a covenant Bible study for the Church of the Brethren with Brethren Press, and it is called Sabbath, God's Call to Peace. And so I've asked Angela to come and chat with us a little bit about Sabbath, about rest, about how that is God's call to peace and where that touches our lives in relevant and vital ways. As I read the study and am working through it, there is this beginning where you put out this paradigm shift, I would call it, where in the creation narrative, God creates all of the world in 6 days and on the seventh day rests. And I have always understood that as, well, we're supposed to work for 6 days like God, and then we rest. But you shift things up and lay out this framework that human beings were created on the sixth day, and then the first day of our living, we were to rest with God, which sort of blew my mind. Been definitely thinking a lot about that. So, if you would mind telling us a little bit more about yourself, anything else that I've left out that you might want to tell about yourself, and then just launch into how you came up with this idea and why you feel like it's so important for us in this day and age as followers of Jesus Christ.
So I am a real rhythm girl. We've talked, you and I together, about sports, but the other thing, I also sing, I play the piano, I play the flute. I'm very interested in the ebb and flow and rhythm of life. And so when I embarked on this topic, I started reading the Genesis passage. One of the things that struck me was how rhythmic it is. So when you read it, God spoke and let there be light. And then God saw the light. And then God said that it was good. And it's this rhythm that's repeated over and over. God spoke
Mhm.
and God saw and God declared. And I'm like, okay, so there's a rhythm to our lives. But then when I read it again, there's another rhythm that's sort of tucked in there. And that rhythm is, and it was evening and it was morning the first day.
Mhm.
It was evening and it was morning the second day. And I thought to myself, sounds to me like the day begins with the evening.
Yeah, it does.
And so, what does that look like? And as I wrestled with that, as I marinated, maybe is a better term, in that, I thought, our Jewish brothers and sisters are onto something because they begin their Sabbath at sundown.
Yes.
And so, what does that mean? And the more that I sat and thought about it, the more I thought, I wonder what it would be like if instead of starting our day with the crow of the rooster, right? And we get up and we immediately get working and we make sure that we've done enough work to settle down for the night? Have we crossed enough things off? Have we accomplished what we set out to do? Are we worthy now to stop working? Will people not judge us if we're done now for the day? What if instead we said, have I rested enough to do my work?
Right.
And that completely shifted everything. I have actually started setting an alarm at night to say, instead of setting an alarm in the morning, which I don't have to do, I wake up when the sun comes up, but
What happens as we get older, right?
yeah, right. And I can sleep with my curtains open. That helps too. I don't have blackout curtains, but to think, okay, my day is beginning with a good amount of rest. And so I'm going to, instead of getting up because I have something to do, I'm going to go to bed because I have something to do. I'm preparing myself. It is a real paradigm shift, let me tell you, because there are times where I'm involved in something. I'm reading a really good book. I really just want to read my book. And I'm like, nope,
Hmm.
my day is beginning and this is important.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said I could interrupt you because you wanted it to be a dialogue. But
Yeah.
as you're mentioning that, I'm a real geek. I'm a technology sort of freak. But as you're speaking about that, Apple has a bedtime app feature on their phone where it does that. You say, when am I supposed to go to bed? And it will say, hey, start getting ready to go to bed and start preparing yourself, turn off your TV, turn off all the blue lights. It's very interesting that Apple has digitized that for humanity, and it ties right into the rhythm and the rule for life that you're talking about that comes from the Genesis account. That's fascinating, I think.
Well, and I really like the word that you said, start getting ready for bed, like sort of that whole process, because when you look at what God has to say about Sabbath throughout the entirety of the Torah and some of those, scriptures, it's not just, okay, and now it's the seventh day, so put your stuff down and take a rest. It is now you're going to prepare for rest. So there
Yes.
is some work that you have to do ahead of time in order to be prepared to rest. So
Hmm.
this is not just, your leftovers.
Why don't you flesh that out a little bit? Because when Beth and I were at Nestville in Lancaster, we did a whole series on Sabbath. And we practiced the Sabbath in Jewish style. And I know we talked a little bit about this when you were at our home visiting. Talk a little bit about what the preparation is for resting in the Jewish sense, and then what are you doing to prepare for your rest each day and perhaps each week?
Right. So, first of all, there's a wonderful book called Flunking Sainthood, and it's by an author who was trying to live by all of the laws in the Torah. And so there's a whole chapter on Sabbath and about how it made her feel more anxious and more stressed out trying to do all of these little, you can't touch a door light switch and you can, whatever. I mean, obviously light switch wasn't in the Torah, but that sort of
Yeah.
sensation that you're not supposed to do any work at all and how much that stressed her out. And to that I say, God tells us, Jesus tells us that the Sabbath is made for us. We're not made for the Sabbath. And
Hmm.
so these preparations that we're making are not intended to stress us out.
Right.
The point of the preparations is, I think, more of a justice issue because we're preparing ahead so that the women don't have to work, the servants don't have to work, nobody has to work because the preparations have been made. So it's not like just a certain group of us get to rest and everyone else waits on us. So there's a justice issue that's
Yeah.
happening there
For everybody,
for everyone. For
including the
everyone.
animals,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
When we were practicing Sabbath and this book and my lifestyle and whatnot, we're trying to re-engage that. But we would prepare our home and our mostly our food so that we didn't have to cook or clean over that 24-hour period. We would do it from Friday at sunset. We'd light a candle and we'd get everything ready for the Sabbath. And then we would stop on Saturday evening, which then if there was things that were left to do sort of after Sabbath, we still had the evening to do it. And I found that that was very refreshing and very helpful, and it did reduce the worry that somehow by resting I'm going to miss out. And of course we turned off social media and all those kinds of things too.
Right. Well, because that's one of the things too, is all of these rules, I call them invitations. I
Yeah.
prefer that sort of language, but
Opportunities, yeah.
right, because they're not just random. And so you're lighting a candle, not because, oh, it's Sabbath, so the first thing we do is we light a candle. No, the point of the candle is to bring our awareness to the fact of God with us.
Yes.
Right.
Hmm.
So we're lighting this candle. This is in preparation for the fact that God is with us always. What is missing is our awareness. And so that's a step of preparation. Now we're aware that we are abiding with God. Now we don't have to sit and make the food. We can actually sit and enjoy the person that we're sharing it with. Right.
Hmm.
So there's this awareness of the
And we don't have to
community.
rush away from the table to clean up the kitchen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's part of the what are we abstaining from is not the point. It's what are we invited to? And the to part is the relationship part, right?
Hmm.
With God and with one another. It's an abiding.
Well, I'm wondering, do you think, and we haven't talked about this much, but as you're talking and I'm thinking about it, do you think in our American culture where we have a weekend that we have all come to, I guess, believe that we should have 2 days where we get to rest and have fun and do things? Um, have you thought about that different paradigm, the weekend, and it's 2 days as opposed to the more biblical Judaic model of starting with rest and then working six?
Well, I mean, how many people actually get a weekend?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I know we say that, but
But
I
we
don't
feel
know
like we're
that that's
supposed to, right? And then when we don't, we're all upset about it.
yeah, as somebody who has never had a weekend, really, I don't know. I think it is interesting because the way that we work is different too. Like we're going to jobs, but then on Saturday or whatever day it is the day that we mow the yard and we do the laundry and we, all that
Right.
kind of thing. So, yes, I suppose technically some of us have 2 days, but I still think one or parts of both or however that works out is still work.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would our audience, at least the audience that we're trying to engage with is the young adult, 19 to 35, folks that are in college, persons that are starting their work life, perhaps with a partner, perhaps with children, perhaps not. What would you want to say to that group of people to start either the reflection process on these concepts or some practical, hey, try this and see how it helps? Do you have anything to say in regard to that?
So I actually have two sons in this demographic, and the struggle with people starting out is that the employers, I would say 95% of the time, will take whatever you'll give them and not be satisfied. Like
Uh,
if you wanted to be available on your phone to your employer 24/7, they would say, fantastic,
yes. Yeah.
fantastic.
Production without cost.
That's right. And so the struggle then is how do you, in an effort to build your resume, right, to continue on this path of whatever path it is that you're on, how do you maintain healthy boundaries? How do you maintain healthy relationships? How do you, like, all of those things are impacted by the quote unquote Pharaoh who just would be thrilled with more production.
Hmm.
And it's very countercultural. I mean, it's very difficult. There was the whole conversation, I don't know if it was a couple of years ago now, about quiet quitting, where that particular age group was like, you know what? I'm getting paid for however many hours a week. And so when I'm done with those hours a week, I'm going to be done. And how people being the outsiders looking in were just outraged.
Sure.
How dare they have any sort of boundaries?
Yes. They're
And
lazy and they don't have a good work ethic, whereas they actually weren't and did have a good work ethic.
well,
That
they had a good work ethic, but they had an understanding of what sustains a good work ethic.
exactly.
Yeah.
Your supposition is that a good work ethic starts with resting enough that we can work healthfully and well, right?
Right.
So I don't think anyone really, when we talk about work ethic, I don't think that anyone probably naturally thinks of, oh, and rest is part of a healthy work life.
Well, and it sort of brings in the whole idea of peace, right? So if you are burning the candle at both ends, which leads to burnout, none of that is peace to your body, right? So you are inflicting harm on your body, but you're inflicting harm on your relationships. I can remember as a young mom shouting at my kids, just give me 10 more minutes. I'm working on something. And I would love to take that back. I would love to be more gentle,
Sure.
less violent, right? Less violent with them.
Yeah.
But also the level of resentment that it brings. I mean, if you are a person who is in a relationship with a workaholic or a volunteeraholic or whatever that is, there's resentment in that too, which is the opposite of peace. So
Right.
there's a lot more to it than just, building a name for yourself and building a career that's sustainable.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a really important point. I just want to draw that out just a little bit so any of our listeners kind of catch it. And that is that typically when we think about rest, we think about taking a nap or lying down or doing nothing. In other words, not relating to anything. Whereas in the Jewish sense, rest was the opportunity to relate and have a deepening relationship with the divine, a deepening relationship with creation, a deepening relationship with our families and our friends and our spouses. That was a focus. In other words, we're going to cease our striving and our labor so that we can relate. And I think that's essential in this whole topic for people to get that we're not just saying, veg, right? At least
Right.
I know I'm not saying that. And I don't think you are either. We're saying you need to create margin and space in your life, and it's God ordained to relate to people.
Right. And it goes back to how we started this conversation, which it's not what we're resting from, it's what we're resting for.
Right. Exactly. Well, I know that you're on a timeline, and so are we, because we've got church and we've got preaching to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's 9:50. I think you have about 5 more minutes. What I'm going to do is let Grayson ask some questions. He's been writing fervently. This is
Oh,
very
fabulous.
exciting. So I'm going to let him take the chair and chat with you a little bit and let him kind of close out things for us today.
Okay, thanks, Harry.
Hello, Angela.
Hi, Grayson.
So I've actually just been taking a lot of notes for the most part, but it has really been fascinating hearing you talk. So I am curious, you were talking earlier about how for young folks, especially, it can be hard to find that balance of setting healthy boundaries while working to build your resume. Are there any sort of methods that you would suggest for finding what that balance is for yourself early on? Maybe while you've still got hopefully folks around as a support system from when you were growing up, how to sort of make use of those connections and still maintain those relationships in that?
Yeah, so I think one of the struggles that I'm hearing from my kids is how intentional they're having to be about seeing someone face to face.
Mm.
That there seems to be a lot of temptation to let the phone substitute or whatever means you're using the game console, whatever it is that is a way of building community, which is valuable, but they seem to be recognizing that the intentional in-person relationships are harder and more of a struggle to work with. And I feel like they are certainly recognizing that that is a lack in their life, that that's missing. So, one of the things that I would say and that they've talked about is they have a group of friends that they are very intentional that Saturday night is when they physically get together, anybody who can come. And so sometimes just developing these healthy habits require scheduling, being intentional about scheduling, because otherwise it's like, oh, we should have lunch.
And then it never happens.
And then it never happens. And the thing is that when you're intentional like that, that helps hold you accountable. You're building a community that is holding you account to this rhythm that you have of relationship building.
Yeah, that's interesting because that sounds like something that might be a little bit scary at first, having people holding you accountable. But I'm sure once that becomes more of a rhythm after a couple of weeks, it really, well, it becomes something you're excited for.
Right. And maybe holding accountable is a more punitive word. Maybe the better thing would be encouraging community, like really supporting that part of your life. And I really think that's important because the loud voices in your life are going to be the boss that demands more, the professor that demands more, the internal part that demands excellence and all of that kind of stuff. But what is the end result of that? The God that is inviting you, the friends that are inviting you are not demanding excellence, they're demanding presence.
Well, now you were just talking about that very close friend group that I believe you were saying your kids have set up to meet with regularly. How would you recommend sort of deciding what people are a part of that? Because I know for me, recently going to college, I have a lot of different friends in a lot of different realms who I connect with for various different reasons. Is there, I guess, a way to have different ways of connecting with all of those people, or is there maybe a certain
Like a criteria.
yeah, a criteria, a sort of reason for connecting that we should really focus on with some of those friends? Like these people are my close friends that I connect with spiritually, so they really help me sort of rest in this way.
Mhm. So I am not tech savvy. I don't know how y'all communicate and organize these things, but I will tell you that my son found an organization in the city that he lives in that was for young people who had moved to that city within the last 2 years who just wanted an opportunity to form relationships, just platonic relationships. And so they put out, I don't know how they found it. I mean, I'm old. I would say put something on a bulletin board. Obviously, that's probably not how you do it. I don't know, but the thing is that the people who signed up to do it were intentional about wanting to find in-person people to gather. And they would have different activities in different parts of the city just so that people had different interests and things. But the primary thing that drew them together was they were interested in relationship building. And so maybe that's the question is, I don't want a study group. I don't want this or that. I want people who are intentional about the part of the life that is relating.
Angela, I want to respect your time and ours as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. I hope that it was meaningful for you. Certainly was good for me, and I will hopefully be a blessing for our listeners as well. Again, your book, Sabbath, God's Call to Peace, is available on brethrenpress.org. A
Yes.
wonderful little study guide. So if people are forming groups, like we were just talking about, they can always use this book as a starter for that. And hopefully we can have you back. Certainly would enjoy that.
I would love to come back. Thank you so much for hosting this, Harry, and God bless you on this effort.
Hey, bless you as well. And I guess let's head to church.
Let's do it.